Same for CO2 and same for population. Now, I think almost everyone is here, right? Okay, let's go to the next stage. Next stage. We need to remove some columns that we don't need, right? For example, we don't need we don't need country name, we don't need whatever the series name or etc. and etc. All we need is just country code and the data, right? So we are going to make new data frame GDP underscore clean, which is from GDP of data frame. There are two ways we can drop unnecessary columns, or we can just copy what we actually need, right? First, we are going to copy only the columns that we need. So we need the bracket, and in the bracket we need another bracket, because we want to. The reason that we have two brackets is because having two brackets, we can select multiple column names. If you don't have, whenever you want to select multiple column names, you need double bracket. And then saying country code, comma, and what's the name of this value? What's the column name of this value column? 2023, YR 2023, and that's it. And then we will copy. Okay. Here is very important thing that you can see. That copy is very critical one. There are two different ways of data copy in Python. If you don't have this dot copy, basically this GDP clean will reference the data in GDPDF. So if there's any change in GDP clean, either GDPDF will have the same change as well. Whenever you access the GDP clean data, either guide you or either point you to GDPDF. But if you have that copy, you are making entirely new data frame, which is totally independent from GDPDF. In this case, we need it to be independent. So we make GDP clean. And we are going to run it. And if we see the GDP clean, print GDP clean, see, we have only the country code and the value in 2023. So there is question, I mean, it's actually a good idea. It's usually a good idea. However, when you do data analysis, there is a big chance that you need to do the same process over 100 times, right? In that case, rather than delete 100 files on your own by yourself, it's much easier to use Python to let it do it 100 times with just one line of code. That's the reason why we are doing it. And then we will rename it. We will rename this GDP clean to something else, because 2023 and bracket year 2023 is not the easiest way to access the data, right? Now, GDP clean has method called columns. If we just run it, it shows what kind of columns then you have. So basically, this columns method allows you to access the column names. In this case, we will set column names to be country code and GDP. And if we print GDP clean, now the value column has different column name. It's much easier to access to the value now. So are we good so far? Okay. Now we need to do the same for the other two, CO2 clean and population clean. Let's do it. So CO2 clean, and this is a good time to ask any question if you have. Do the same, and pop clean, CO2 DF, country code, make sure that this key is correct, and let it access to it. Dot copy. I have a problem because I have 3 brackets here and 2 brackets, means I made a mistake here. Run it. And then we'll rename the columns. CO2 clean, columns, country code and CO2. And same for population clean, columns, country code, and POP. And
Amanda pointed out something good. Your pop clean is a copy of CO2DF.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Amanda.
Thank you. This is something called bug. You will never notice it. And this is the reason why you should not trust AI too much. My mistake. Thank you. Now we have all the cleaned files. We can see it like print GDP clean.head. I explained to you what head method is doing. Do you remember that? It shows you, it displays you only the 5 rows of the data to be cleaner than having all the data in one screen. You can just see the preview. Basically, it's preview. So do we have everyone here? We're gonna have 10 more minutes because we have a lot of ways to go for the next 4 weeks. We're gonna have 10 more minutes, okay? Sorry about that. And then we saw the data set before, right? Those 2 dots, which is not very useful for us because it means nothing to us. We need to remove it, right? We are going to use GDP clean. And in this time, we are going to use method called replace. Replace actually replace something to something else, right? We will replace 2 dots to PDNA, means NA. So basically missing value parameter that provided by pandas and in place true. In place true means in many cases, as you can see before, whenever we do something, we put the output in a new data frame or new variable. However, if you have in place true, I mean, you cannot have this everywhere, right? In this case, copy and in place true is not something that will work. However, in this case, replace provide you the parameter in place true, which basically in place the output in GDP clean again. Something like this. And even though you don't have explicitly, you didn't put the output in the GDP clean again explicitly, by doing so, you can see new GDP clean, which has NA rather than 2 dots, right? We'll do the same for the other two. CO2 clean, replace pDNA. In this case, I'll be wise to use this AI. And same for pop clean, replace pDNA in place true pDNA and run it. How do we know that if things are all correctly converted? So one way is checking the number of NA. How? Like this, GDP clean, and in GDP column, so we are checking the number of NAs in the GDP column of the data frame GDP clean. How? By using by sum, basically summarize all NA values. And saying, it says 23. It counted, there are 23 NAs. That's correct number. Seems it's correct because it became NA list. That's what we want to do. Oh, no problem. I can show you the last code again. Let's do for this CO2 clean dot in this case, what we want to count is CO2 column. The values are in CO2 column, and we want to count if there is NAs. Is NA, and we want to summarize it. We want to see the summary, and it has 14 NAs in the data. All together, it's going to be look like something like this. Why do I have this? Now we can see that GDP has 23 NAs, CO2 has 14 NAs, and population data has 0 NAs. It depends on when you receive the data. When you download the data, this can be different, right? I made this lecture note about 2 months ago. At that time, GDP had 27 missing data, and CO2 has 18 missing data, and population 4 missing data. It got better. It's got better. So it is quite critical to download the data just before you use it actually. Probably this is the last one we can do. Is we are going to merge all the 3 data frames into one, right? How? In pandas data frame, we have a method called merge. It's quite straightforward, right? And we can merge GDP clean with CO2 clean using country code. How is basically inner. So inner allows you to have like having all the variables. At this moment, you don't need it, but if you have inner, put all the CO2 clean data in GDP clean data format. So if we run it, as you can see, we have GDP and CO2 using GDP and CO2 as separate column in the same data frame using country code as a key, right? We can put it in merged DF, something like this. Now we can do once again, merged DF should be PD merge DF with, we don't have population here and everything is same. Now we have just one clean data frame with all the data column by column.
We're just 3 minutes until we finish. We have a question from Hamad asking about how equal inner, what that means. Okay, there are many different ways of merging data frames, right? So I think it'd be useful to explain that bit.
So there is two different ways using inner and outer, but usually when you use, I mean, correct me, Yuni, if I'm wrong, but what I do is when I use inner means I want to keep my GDP clean, so left side data frame's structure as is, and then want to put right side data frame into the left side data frame. So in this case, I want to put CO2 clean into the GDP clean data structure. If there is difference between GDP clean and CO2 clean about the country code, if for example, let's assume there is no Antarctica in in GDP clean, but there is Antarctica in CO2 clean. If it's inner, Antarctica will not be created. However, if it's outer, it will be created as well. That's something how I understand, but I will double check it and I will explain you.
Also popped in a good explainer on different joins on the chat.
And then another question. Another question is from Yesul. It's written as NaN instead of Na, so can I just use NaN in the code? It depends on how it looks like. But in this case, let's see this, and then oh no, it doesn't have enough number of them. Na. If we see this GDP clean, it has Na. It's about how it is displayed usually. So usually, if you follow the same code, it must be shown as Na. But even if it is shown NaN, in many cases, it's just same with Na. Yep, that's another way, but actually, Argos actually is a good idea, but it doesn't work that way. That way, as far as I know, if Pandas did not upgrade that part, it only takes 2. So what you can actually do is something like this: merged df is pd merge GDP clean, and like this, merge once, and then merge again. Like this. You can add merge and just one parameter, new data frame, and then country code and inner. Unfortunately, these Python or programming languages are not really smart as we expect. So we need to be clear about what we need to do.